وصبغ للآكلين وإن لكم في الأنعام لعبرة نسقيكم مما في بطونها ولكم فيها منافع كثيرة ومنها تأكلون. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم وإنا على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان وأموات الحاضرين جميعا وبالخصوص أرواح المؤسسين رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, inshallah we will commemorate the martyrdom of our beloved Imam Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam with the upcoming days of Muharram. Starting from tomorrow, inshallah, our program will start here at the masjid. Inshallah, around 7:30, we will start the dinner. And then after dinner, 8:30 will be salat, inshallah. And after salat, there will be lecture for Sayyid Kashmiri. And after, Sayyid Brother Haider first in English, and then after Brother Haider will be lecture for Sayyid Kashmiri in Arabic, inshallah. This will be our program for every night, inshallah. Dinner first, salat second, lecture in English, then lecture in Arabic, inshallah. That's what we will do for the upcoming days, the 10 days of Muharram, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Do you have a announcement? We're good? We're good? So inshallah tonight we will have the honor of having our beloved brother Dr. Haider Zubaidi among us to enlighten us with one of the great lectures of his for tonight, inshallah. So we welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم، والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين سيد الأولين والآخرين حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين واللعنة على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we approach the holy month of Muharram, one can't help that the mood and the mindset and the very well-being and everything of a person kind of changes as we approach these days. And rightfully so. But I can argue that the majority of us, and I would start with myself first and foremost, is that when Muharram comes about, we really don't think about it maybe till maybe a week before, max 2 weeks before. So the preparation process, I mean, speaking for myself, it's a little late. Again, speaking for myself, I can't speak for anyone else. SubhanAllah, where Muharram is positioned, it's immediately after a couple of Eids that we have. We just went through one Eid, which was what? Right? No. The one that we just went by. Mubahala. And before that was Ghadir. Eidullah al-Akbar. Al-A'zam, as our Imams have called it. Such a happy, joyous occasion, and then we delve into Muharram. It is my sincere belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks and chooses certain occasions to be at certain times of the year. For many different reasons, one of them being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the opportunity for the mu'min, for the believer to grow, for the person to be more attached to the Ahlul-Beyt alayhim salam, because they are the path to him. No one can argue that. But the interesting transition, it kind of, for a mu'min, in my perspective, at the very least, a very humble perspective, the preparation for spiritual growth, it kind of starts in Rajab, because you know that you're coming up on Ramadan, Rajab comes, then Sha'ban comes, then Ramadan comes, and everything kind of escalates, and the apex is Laylatul Qadr, and things kind of come down a little bit. Then you have Eid, a very joyous occasion, Eid al-Fitr, followed by Eid al-Adha, which is at the heels of Hajj when you're approaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the focus kind of shifts a little bit more, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, you came to me for cleansing, I cleansed you, you're clean, but now, since you're clean, let's focus on wilayah. And the focus comes, and we have Eid al-Ghadir. Now, on the day of Ghadir, we all know, the least of the narrations say that there was 120,000 that were present on that day. And they all gave what to Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam? What did they give him? They gave bay'ah, they gave allegiance. Every one of them, 120,000, on that hot day, that some of the narrations that the Prophet ﷺ told everyone to stop and hang on the one of the hottest days of the year, that some narrations say that people were standing on one foot, alternating because of the hot sand, on that very hot day, to declare the completion of the religion. And everyone gave allegiance on that day. Now, giving allegiance is very easy. You just go up to someone, you shake their hand, you say the bay'ah excerpt that you're supposed to say, and you move on with your life. Now, everyone, like I said, gave bay'ah. As we know, not everyone stayed on that bay'ah. Clearly, history states this. To the point where there were some immediately after the death of the Prophet who were saying, well, we don't even know if that event occurred, as they question Zahra alayhi salam. And they say, remind us of what Ghadir Khum. She says, subhanallah. And she gave examples, and she had witnesses, etc. So, I mean, the same thing right now that we see in most recent history, that certain things didn't occur when they occurred right before our eyes. Ghadir Khum comes, and the focus of Ghadir is Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. And the focus from the Ummah is on Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. And subhanallah, immediately after that is Mubahala. So your focus is Amir al-Mu'minin, and now we're going to expand the circle a little bit. That part of this wilayah are Ashab al-Kisa, all 5 of them. Because if you're going to give bay'ah to him, to Amir al-Mu'minin, there's a chain that is attached to every one of them. It's not just Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's Fatima al-Zahra, it's Imam Hassan, it's Imam Hussein. Of course, at the head of them is Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For a lack of better words, at least that's my expression, it's as if a person or a mu'min is marinating in wilayah before they come to Muharram. They're just swimming. Although I feel, and speaking about myself, like I said, we have a bit of taqseer in celebrating Qadir. And we have a bit of taqseer in celebrating Mubahala. Those are a'yad, I mean, they're celebrations. They are declarations for the Muslim Ummah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. And even more, they cement the closeness of the person to the Prophet and his family, and by extension, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the road to me is through them. If you want to approach me, you have to go through them. And there's an escalation process. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Mubahala, and then you hit Muharram. And as I said, you're living this atmosphere of wilayah, and the people at that time who lived it, they put it into action on the day of Ashura. Remember that allegiance that we talked about? It was put into perfect practice on the day of Ashura. And that being, of course, it's embodied by the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the family of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As I said, sometimes when Muharram comes, we delve head first, and it comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's as if it was yesterday that last year's Muharram was here, and it's so fast approaching, it almost comes out of left field for some people. In order to appreciate this month a little more, it's very important to recognize and take a step back that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to paint a picture here. He's trying to get you in a stage and an escalation process to cement the belief system that we have. Every Muharram that comes about in our lifetime, everyone is depending on the person. They take a little something from the majalis that they attend. Or they should. Now, unfortunately, some people complain more rather than accept or take something. The food was not that good. The floor was dirty. This person was there and I don't like them. I don't understand why this person came. Why are the kids screaming? Where are their parents? Why are they over here? Well, it's just like more and more and more and more and more and more. Looking at the cup half empty, so to speak, when really we are the guests of the Aza of Abu Abdullah. We are the guests of Rasulullah. We are the guests of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We are the guests of Fatima al-Zahra. If Fatima al-Zahra is accepting for that child to be running around and being themselves and, yelling and screaming, I highly doubt she's looking around and I can't believe where their parents are. Imagine Fatima al-Zahra, what would she do with that child? Let's say the parents are busy or something like that. Or someone, maybe it's their first time at the masjid, maybe they haven't come in a while, maybe they're foreign to the masjid. How would Fatima al-Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen and Rasulullah would welcome them in to the Aza of Abu Abdullah, to the majlis of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. Furthermore, us as individuals, because I firmly believe the Ahlul-Beyt, they attend the majalis of Abu Abdullah. We already told this. They attend. Their spiritual selves, they attend these majalis in one way or another. Wherever Abu Abdullah and his majlis is mentioned, even if there was one person with clear intentions, it's worth attending that majlis, at least for that person. And it could be a majlis of thousands and thousands of people. At the end of the day, as I said, we are the guests of Allah first, and then the Ahlul-Beyt, in commemorating this occasion. Now the question is, what is our responsibility in attending these majalis? Many people, they come for many different things. A lot of it is tradition. It's a cultural practice. And to a degree, that's okay. It's not okay and it's okay. It's not okay is that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is not merely a tradition and a cultural practice. Imam Hussein is far more than that. His reach extends far beyond that. And it's okay in a way, maybe this person's way towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through a majlis that he's attending, maybe with a different mindset. It's okay, maybe he'll hear something, or she'll hear something, or there will be an influence on them through whatever the speaker is saying, or whatever the behavior in front of them are. Miracles have happened in the Majlis of Abdullah. Miracles. People have changed their whole entire lives. They were living one way. They attended the Majalis of Abu Abdullah and they just flipped upside down. That is one of the miracles of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. One of the very many miracles of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He accepts everybody. And he invites everybody. He invites everyone. And he never says no to anyone. That's his karam and his jud. But once again, our responsibility is that the Imam alayhi salam, does he just want you to show up, or want us to show up and go through the motions, eat, pray, drink some tea, listen to the speech, cry a little bit, beat your chest, go home? Which to a degree, that's fine. But a believer is always trying to improve and grow and get better. And that growth towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Imam Hussein is mandatory for a mu'min to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is absolutely needed for the person to grow. Everyone can learn something. Everyone can pick up something. Until now, our maraja, they have majalis in their homes, or they host majalis, and they ask a speaker to go forward, and they sit there and they listen. I know a story of a marja, he's still living. He has a tradition where he hosts a majlis, and he asks the speaker, give us something that we can benefit from. He's a marja. And he's asking from the speaker, give us something so we can benefit from. So the approach with these majalis should be, we could be a little greedy. It's okay. It's okay to be greedy. These are one of the events on the calendar year where a person should be greedy. And the greed comes in that I am a guest in this majlis, but I am invited to take as much as I want and as much as I can within my capacity. And the decision can be made by the individual is, how can I grow from these majalis? How can I get better? And even more, how can I get to know Imam Hussein a little more? What does he look like to me? Not in the physical appearance, but as my guide towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what can I learn from him? His companions, what did they portray on the day of Ashura? But oh, by the way, before, how did they get to that level? To the point when they were asked to leave, they cried. They could not imagine their lives without the Imam of their time. Could not. And on that day, they were rushing and racing to give up their lives for him. How did they get to that level? And how does that day apply to today? Because I guarantee you, the lessons from then continue to apply to today. We see it right in front of us, in front of our eyes. Clear, in my opinion, this year clearer than the last year, and the before that and before that. It's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. And Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, that saying of his continues to resonate. Every day is Ashura, wa kullu ardan Karbala. Kullu ardan Karbala. It resonates because that event resonates for time. The Imam alayhi salam did not go through what he went through just for one day or for an 8-hour battle. He had the vision and the foresight that this will go on for generations, all the way until the Qiyam of the Mahdi. He had that foresight and he had that vision. But the question to us is, do we want to be part of that caravan and part of that journey? And how do we move forward with it? It's an individual choice. You all have heard me say this multiple times in the past. It's an individual choice. The Imam alayhi salam, he does not force anyone to be with him. And he demonstrated that clearly. But as I've said before, the door is wide open. Wide open. So even if, for example, we did not necessarily appreciate Mubahala as we should have, or Ghadir as we should have, still, it's not too late. We are at the doors of Muharram. We are the guests of the Imam alayhi salam. And the primary host, that being the Prophet and his Ahlul-Beyt, and the one who overlooks these majalis as well is the Imam of our time as well. He sees and he mourns. And who knows which majalis he sits at? Who knows? Allahu Alam. Who's to say he's not going to sit in one of our majalis? I can't say. Can I say no? No one can say no. Can we say he's not even looking at our majalis? We can't say that either, because he's always looking after his followers, even if they misbehave sometimes. He's always keeping an eye on everyone. And at the end of the day, to reciprocate that and to appreciate that presence and to appreciate that the Imam alayhi salam is overlooking, that is also, these upcoming 10 days can serve as a bridge towards our relationship with the Imam of our time. Because when we arrive to this world, the event of Ashura already is behind us. We can't help it. We were born in this time where we cannot physically access Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But the Imam of our time continued that path, and he continued that road. Nothing has changed. In every time period there's a Hussein, and at the same time there's also a Yazid, and at the same time there are forces of good and there are forces of evil. There are forces that want Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi an Munkar, and there are forces who want Amr bil Munkar and Nahi an Ma'ruf, and they keep clashing and clashing and clashing. And just like on the day of Ashura, some people were on this side, some people were on this side, and some people just kind of stood idle. just on the sidelines and observing. Little do they know that just by observing and being on the sideline, they are actually helping the forces of evil against the forces of good. There was someone who came to Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam many years after the event of Ashura. And he told him that I was all the way in the back of the army. I didn't strike with a sword or stab with a spear or shoot an arrow. I just stood there. I made it a point just to stand there. I didn't participate with anything. So the Imam alayhi salam said, on the day of Ashura, you were there. He said, yeah. And you stood in the back. He said, yeah, on the back. I didn't do anything. He said, but you stood on which side? كثرت السواد على إمام زمانك. That you, one person, even if you did not participate, you made it look like there was one more person that my father has to go through, that the Imam of the time had one more person standing there against them, even if they were standing. So the question is, us as individuals, where are we? And inshallah, we're not on the forces of the other side. But the question is, are we on this side? And I don't think anyone can argue and say, no, I'm on the other side. No. Everyone's on this side. But the question is, what is the action that is being taken by the individual? Just like I said, just like Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Ghadir had allegiance, not everyone followed through. Not everyone followed through. As a matter of fact, the majority basically betrayed that allegiance. Frankly speaking, they betrayed the allegiance. They gave it, but they betrayed. Staying on that allegiance, it takes a commitment of the individual to stay on this path. And that commitment comes from a determination and recognition that I am here in this place, I need to grow more, I need to advance myself, I need a tighter relationship with the Imam of my time. Just like those companions had a relationship with the Imam of their time. And with that being said, the appreciation that we have for the Imam of our time comes from our individual efforts. Many people go through the motions. Many, just like Salah. Salah, many people go through the motions, but the appreciation of Salah, for those who taste the beauty and the sweetness of Salah, it's addictive. But the person who says, and speaking of myself, we all go through this, as soon as you say Allahu Akbar, you could have had laser focus right before Salah, laser focus. For some reason, that focus just evaporates like that. And every problem in the world that you have going on in your, even if you have no problems, the world problems come about. The geopolitical stage comes about in your mind. And you start thinking, what are we going to do about this? And what are we going to do about that? What's going to happen here? What's going to happen there? Then for some reason also, every solution to every problem comes up during Salah. And before you know it, you're saying your takbirat. And you say, well, did I pray 3 or did I pray 4? It's like an event of amnesia. A mu'min, a believer, is always struggling to have connection, is always struggling to maintain a connection, and also struggling and achieving a very strong connection. And all that background noise and the distractions, they put it to the side. The same thing with Muharram. The background noise, the distractions, you people follow these traditions, it's 2024. Come on guys, we all have degrees, we're intellectuals, we're muthaqafeen. Why don't we just listen? Why do you have to cry and beat yourself? That's something that is so backwards. You're still living in 2,000 years ago. Because the season is coming, and you all know what I'm talking about. Little do they know the same thing was said 1,400 years ago. Ya Bani Hashim, why are you guys crying? It's okay. I mean, something happened. The same thing. When we know that the Prophet and his family mourned for the Imam alayhi salam, we have certain individuals or certain rifts that say, we could just have an intellectual discussion about Imam Hussein. Leave the emotion out of it. Why? Why? For what reason? And why are we harping on the point that leave emotion out of Imam Hussein? Because there's an understanding that it could be a very illiterate person who doesn't know how to read and write, but their wisdom is years and decades beyond the person with the highest degrees, for the simple fact they understood a little bit of what Hussein is. And they could sit there and they could lecture for hours about Imam Hussein. And the reason I say that is because I have been around individuals who can sit and talk about Imam Hussein for hours on end, listing narratives and lessons of how to go forward and be closer to him. And they say, I learned this from Imam Hussein, and I learned this from Imam Hussein, and I learned this. And they list it and list it and list it. And they keep going and going and going, and they don't stop. And you could see in their faces they have a thirst for more. And they take more, and they want more. To the point where their whole lives become engulfed by this Imam. Everything that they live for is Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein has to be part of everything that they have. To the degree where the biggest honor of their lives, they call themselves a khadim. He is a khadim, or she is a khadim of Imam Hussein. And inshallah, in the coming lectures, we'll talk about khidmah and the ethics and the etiquette of khidmah. As an introduction to those lectures, as we said that we are coming and we are at the doorsteps. We are being welcomed to attend these majalis as the guests of these majalis. The question is, can we give a little bit of ourselves to these majalis as well? Something here, something there. Everyone has something to offer. Everybody. Everybody. Even if it's a smile to your brother. Even if it's being nice. Even if you set your differences aside, if you had an issue with someone, and you could fix that issue one way or another, for the sake of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and for the sake of these majalis. Once again, it goes back to the individual and how much they can grow. A person can put a ceiling for themselves and say, you know what, this is a traditional cultural thing. Mom and dad used to do it. I'm just going to do it. Fine. But you put a ceiling for yourself. Imam Hussein alayhi salam wants you beyond that. Especially this day and time where the line between haqq and batil is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. And there's a lot of individuals who are saying, like, I'm just going to hang out here in the middle. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Because I've said, as I mentioned the narration from Imam Zain al-Abidin, he told the person, well, you made it one more person against my father. One more person. And there are people who are literally right now on the face of this earth who are doing Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar action-wise. Literally they're doing it. But not everyone gets up to that stage unless there's self-training, there's self-growth, there's grooming within the self to have the courage to do so. And to have the courage to speak out and say, this is haqq and this is batil. This is murder and this is fighting back against oppression. At the end of the day, they have that courage. But where did that courage come from? It's deep, deep conviction in this belief that they have. And who does it stem from? It stems from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Because if he didn't light that candle, that revolting against an enemy that is forbidding haqq and wants to instill batil, revolting against that enemy is okay. In a time when people were trained that revolting against the power that be is wrong. You shouldn't. And even at that time when people were saying, how could you go against that person? You're outgunned, you're outmanned, you're this and you're this. You're not going to cause too much damage. What are you doing? You're out of your mind. Just sit down and on the side, just keep the peace, etc., etc., etc. Same thing. It's happening 1400 years later. Same thing. Nothing has changed. But that line that Imam Hussein alayhi salam drew and he sacrificed himself for continues until today, until this very, very moment. And that line has supporters, that path has supporters. And you can never say, we don't need any more supporters for this path. You can't say that. The more supporters, the better, because the Imam needs supporters. Well, actually, we need the Imam. The supporters need the Imam. The Imam alayhi salam has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever is on that caravan and they're committed to that caravan and that path, they already kind of did their transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they're on their way. So the question is, us as individuals, where are we and where are we going? That question should always possess itself. And these upcoming 10 days, they are vital for that growth. And there should be great appreciation that it should not be just a cultural practice. Should not be. The spirituality of Muharram is of a different taste. It's a bit of a different taste. It's not like the spirituality of Ramadan. It's not like the spirituality of Rajab. And it's not the spirituality of Sha'ban. Each one is different. The spirituality of Muharram is objectively getting in touch with the event and attaching emotionally to the event to the point where a person can take from the event and quench that spiritual side of theirs that wants action, that wants growth, that wants to be steadfast on this path. The soul wants it. Every person's soul wants it. All the person has to do is just allow themselves to grow in that path. I don't want to take too much of your time. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So inshallah we'll continue the lectures starting tomorrow. I want to open it up to any questions and answers if I can answer any questions.
Ahsantum, brother.
Ahsanallah lakum.
Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture.
Jazakumullah.
You talked about preparation for or for the occasion of Muharram.
Yeah.
And you brought up to my mind the fact that everything needs preparation.
Yeah.
And once you prepare for something, you will perfect it. And you also mentioned month of Muharram, or the 10 days of Muharram. It's an amazing opportunity for growth. So I just thought about a concept. I was asking myself when you were talking, what did I do? What sort of growth what sort of preparation I did? Because all of a sudden I found myself right now, tomorrow's Muharram.
Tomorrow's, yeah.
And
it snuck up on us, yeah.
And the problem is I'm thinking about myself, thinking about it like the difference between a helicopter doing some vertical takeoff, which doesn't need more than a helipad, versus a 747 that carries a lot with it,
Yeah.
and that's why it needs a longer runway.
Yeah.
So in order to carry a lot, you have to prepare a lot. You have to do a lot of preparations. do you have any idea about, I mean, you touched on cleansing yourselves on the days and occasions before Muharram, and that's part of the preparation. Are there any other avenues of preparation for Muharram rather than what you touched on? Just curious.
Yeah, of course. There's so many, but maybe from a few objective historical type of perspective, because for myself, I love history. I'm a big time believer that history not only repeats itself, but a person who is ignorant of history will fall into the mistakes that were historically committed. I think one of the things, honestly speaking, I think we have done a disservice to the Imam, I would say, to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We do not appreciate the preparation that he had for the day of Ashura. The Imam was after the Shahada Imam Hassan. I mean, Imam Hassan, his martyrdom was the year 51 after Hijrah. Ashura was in 61, so 10 years. What did the Imam do in those 10 years? 10 years. 10 years is a long time. What did he do? What was his correspondence with the people around him? Because the day of Ashura didn't just like pop out of nowhere. And the Imam knew the day of Ashura would be coming, and he needed preparation, and he needed forces, he needed soldiers, he needed to also train the people around him. He needed to prepare the Ummah as well for the day of Muharram, to a degree, the ones who were on that path with him. I think from a historical standpoint, the correspondence between Muawiyah and Imam Hussein, the letters that went back and forth, they are hardly mentioned. Hardly mentioned. And the way Muawiyah tiptoed around Imam Hussein, I think we have a lack of not a lack of understanding, we have not delved into the historical background of Muawiyah was scared of Imam Hussein. He was legitimately scared. And the language that the Imam used in the letters and the correspondence between him and Muawiyah was not of someone who was, number one, backing down, two, was speaking from a position of weakness, or three, did not have, so to speak, all of his ducks in a row. Well, the question is, what was the Imam doing at that time? I think if we appreciate that more, in addition to understanding the 120 days that Imam Hussein spent in Mecca. 120 days is also a long time. And Mecca, and the way he measured the time, it was right before Hajj. So people were starting, because back then people don't just arrive on the day, like right now when you go to Hajj, you arrive maybe a week before, 2 weeks before the event. Back then, people arrived months before, months and months and months before. So the Imam timed it just right, and he had conferences, and he had correspondence, and he was preparing people, and he gave speeches. And people from other places came. People came to him from Kufa, from Yemen, from Basra, from Sham. People came to him from Egypt. People came to him from Khurasan. The way that the Imam is painted, and that's like one of the things that we don't really delve into, is that the day of Ashura and Muharram, everything didn't just start on the 2nd of Muharram when the Imam alayhi salam got there. There was a long preparation. And the individuals also that were involved. Because when on the days of Muharram, unfortunately, sometimes the Imam is painted as this weak, feeble character, doesn't know what to do with himself. He has this whole army in front of him, and he's just like, desperate, doesn't know, emotionally distraught. This is Imam Hussein. This is Imam Hussein. I mean, he was raised by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was raised by Amir al-Mu'mineen. He accompanied his brother through the highs and lows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him for this. He created him for this. I don't think we give him enough credit. So trying to understand the historical background, I believe, of what led to the events of Ashura and how did it happen. And I think there would be even more appreciation for the Imam alayhi salam and the genius that he had in orchestrating everything. When he sent Muslim ibn Aqil and why he sent them at that time and the messages that he gave with him and how Muslim alayhi salam maneuvered in Kufa. Now Muslim alayhi salam, he's also someone who's madloom, that we have oppressed him. Muslim is painted as someone who arrives to Kufa, got tricked by the people of Kufa. And then, when he wanted to go to Qasr al-Imara, which is like, who's ever been to Kufa, Masjid al-Kufa and Qasr al-Imara was like a walk from there to the parking lot, right? From that walk from there to the parking lot, he lost 18,000. And then he got lost. Little do we remember that Muslim ibn Aqil lived in Kufa for 5 years. He was raised by his uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen. Muslim ibn Aqil was a general in Siffin. He was on the Maymana with Bani Hashim. Now the Maymana of the army is considered the striking force of the army. And that's where Amir al-Mu'mineen put Bani Hashim, because when I need you guys to go, we're going to go. Muslim ibn Aqil was one of the leaders of the Maymana. Muslim ibn Aqil lived for 5 years in Kufa. He didn't know the streets of Kufa. And you really think that Imam Hussein would send someone to Kufa not knowing the streets of Kufa? Not knowing the ins and outs of Kufa? So that's what kind of brings me into the cultural understanding that, Muharram is just a culture. We go through the days and the evenings and the lectures and we just kind of leave it behind us. So that's just a little snippet of the historical side of it. Yes?
So Brother Haider, I'm going to have one comment and one question.
Sure.
You don't have to answer both or,
Yeah.
comment. It's just, we can think about this maybe for tomorrow or for the next, inshallah.
Sure.
So the first comment is that sometimes even when there's a phrase or saying, even if it's true, like very simple, like the star is beautiful or the star in the sky, although it's true, but when I say Imam says this, it's a lie. If he didn't, if there's no narration, if I don't have any narration.
Yeah.
So when I I had this before. My comment is that about كل يوم كربلاء. It's not existed in any narration.
Mm-hmm.
It could be true. It could be true, but there is no narration like we had. So I checked the موقع الأبحاث والعقائدية.
Okay.
And other أبحاث عقائدية, they said there is no narration for this. Even Wiki Shia, they don't have. Before I got this. So that's one thing. The other thing that's why, beside this comment, the other thing that there is a creditable narrations. There's a very high status narrations.
Mm-hmm.
They said there is nothing like this day, which is the opposite. So, I agree. I totally agree with you. There is a versions of this story, unfortunately.
Versions of what story?
Of the Imam Hussein story.
Hmm?
That some people, they can lean it toward, let's say background probably, and others, they can see a different way, totally different way. So there's
Sure.
two different versions among even, people who are well educated. Now back to my question.
Sure.
And you don't have to answer again. So he said Imam Hussein can accept or in majalis, or he can not, or he may be not. So, and that's, I don't know if that's a figurative speech, or because I know even a prophet, the prophet himself, which is his higher status, he's not a decision maker. He cannot accept or reject. He's observer. In English, if you have a team, there's people who observe, and there's an ayah in this. تعرض الأعمال عليهم. تعرض, meaning that they see only. They can see only. That's why you need to do. So they said you have to behave because somebody else gonna see it. But Imam Hussein gonna see. He's not gonna have a decision. The only one, the only one. That's based on my input. You don't have to, take it. It's just.
Yeah.
I'm here for this for discussion for
Yeah.
tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah.
The only one who has a decision to accept someone in this majlis or reject it, honestly, it's the one, Allah, the so-called Allah. Allah Muhammad. I'm done. I have more comments, but I'll just. So again, you don't have to.
No, to address.
Thank you, brother, for
No problem. To address the points that you brought up. What I meant is that Imam Hussein does not reject anyone. Whoever knocks on the door of the Imam, they open the door. They never say no. Even if it's their enemy, they open the door. The perfect example that we have is after the Battle of Harra, when Yazid and his forces, Musrif ibn Aqaba, we call him Musrif ibn Aqaba, declared Medina to be pillaged for 3 days. We all know the story. What happened? The instructions that he got from Yazid is that even if there are members of Bani Umayyah who are still in Medina, you can go after them too. Just pillage the whole thing. And he did, to the point where horses were tied to the Prophet's grave. People were killed next to the Prophet's grave. There was just desecration. Marwan ibn al-Hakam, a sworn enemy of Ahlul-Beyt, a sworn enemy, who did he go to give him safe haven and security? This is a question for everyone. Who did he go to? Which one? Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Now, Marwan, in keeping the discussion with Imam Hussein, I'm not even going to talk about Marwan's altercations with Imam Hassan or Amir al-Mu'mineen. Before the Imam, after Muawiyah died, Marwan told the governor of Medina to call Imam Hussein in the middle of the night and to take bay'ah for Yazid. Right? That's the story that we know. What did Marwan tell the governor about Imam Hussein? That don't let him leave unless he gives you bay'ah. And if he doesn't want to give you bay'ah, do what with him? Kill him. That's how much Marwan hated Imam Hussein. I'll give you even more. When the heads were brought to Damascus, one of the people in attendance was Marwan. One of the people who showed happiness in front of Imam Zayn al-Abidin was Marwan. Now imagine, there were some narrations who say like Marwan made some comments about Imam Hussein, about the head of Imam Hussein, etc. And this was in the presence of Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. Now imagine, I think any one of us, if that happened to us, the person who murdered my dad, not even the Imams didn't look at it like, oh, you killed my dad. You killed the Hujjah of Allah on this earth. You killed the representative of Allah on this earth. You killed one of Ashab al-Kisa. That's who you killed. Not just my dad. That thing is a personal thing. I'll keep it. I'll take it home. And you said what you said and you did what you did. And then you come and you knock on my door asking for safety. What did the Imam do when that happened? He gave him safety. I'm not saying he accepted his character, but what I'm saying is that they do not reject, because they are the doors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. They are. So if I've said it incorrectly or not detailed enough, that's on me. But the Imam alayhi salam never turns anyone away. I said right now, for example, you go to Karbala, or even you go to, let's just focus on Karbala, and we've all been to ziyarah. You have all types of people who show up next to the Imam, right? All types of people. Everyone who dresses differently also. And I'll leave my comment at that. Someone actually asked me this was in Karbala, it actually happened to me. He was like, how can I can't focus when these types of people are around the Imam. I can't. My response to them was, these types of people were also around the Imam in his lifetime. It's the same thing. History repeats itself. But the Imam never rejected them in his life, and I don't think he rejects them in his death. So I hope that answers your question as well. The majalis is the same thing. I mean, the majalis are even a broader picture, a broader setting. Is that when there's a majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the people who come to these majalis, and I think I'm hoping that I'm understanding your question or your comment. Whoever walks through those doors, they're considered as the guest. I mean, even in traditional Arab culture, you never reject a guest. You never ever reject a guest, right? A guest of the Imam. Or Allah, of course. The people who are attending these majalis are guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But by extension, they're also a guest of Rasulullah. They are guests of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They are guests of Fatimah al-Zahra. They are guests of Imam Hassan. Even more, they are the guests of Imam Hussein. He's Sahib al-Musab. Now, we can't say they are not guests of Rasulullah. They're not guests of Ahlul-Beyt, because Ahlul-Beyt had majalis for Imam Hussein. They had gatherings where they wanted poetry to be recited, where they had gatherings for the remembrance of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But we don't have any narrations that say they rejected anyone. For example, the majalis that Imam Rida alayhi salam held and Ma'mun attended, those majalis, Imam Rida never said, you need to leave this gathering. Knowing who Ma'mun is and what he wants. They don't reject any guests. Their own enemies asked them for advice during their lifetime, and they gave it. The same people who usurped the right of Ali ibn Abi Talib came to him for advice, historically speaking. They usurped his right, but then they came for advice. Not once have we heard that Ali ibn Abi Talib turned them away and said, no, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not giving you advice. There's a hadith from the Prophet telling Imam Ali alayhi salam, Ya Ali, ana wa ant abaway hadhihi al-ummah. Abaway hadhihi al-ummah. We are the fathers of this ummah. Now, metaphorically speaking, a father should have patience with his kids. Wasi' al-sadr. The kids can mess up. The kids could be very harsh. The kids could be just unbearable. Because if the kid comes for help, a good father never turns them away. Of course, help for the good. A good father never turns them away. They're patient and they're patient and they're patient. And for the fathers in attendance, Jazakumullah khair for all your patience. Especially to my father. Thank you for your patience with me. So, even going back to that hadith. Now, Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'min Abawai hadhihi al-Ummah, this ubuwa extends to every imam in their time. Because once again, he is the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. Therefore, he has to have that type of welcome to whoever that comes through. Not necessarily, once again, agree with their character. I hope that kind of addresses that. Okay, Jazakumullah.
Brother Haider, I have
Yes, please.
a couple of quick comments.
Yes, please.
I want to go back to the question regarding preparation, preparing ourselves for Muharram, for the 10 days in Muharram.
Yeah.
And for me, in a very simplistic way and practical way, to prepare for Muharram is to make the intention, first of all, to make the intention to attend the 10 nights of Muharram, wherever I am, wherever there is the masjid, the Husayniyah that I attend and that I go to. In my case, I live in Las Vegas, and we do have Ahlul-Beyt Center, in Las Vegas, and so I make the intention to attend every single night. I make the intention to make it a priority so that my schedule does not conflict, whether it's work schedule, personal schedule, conflict with attending those nights. I make the intention that when in attending, I learn by listening attentively to when we have a speaker, listen to the speaker, because not all of us are readers. It's an opportunity for us to learn, to strengthen our iman, and obviously, of course, to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So I make those intentions. That's my preparation. If you belong to a masjid like this and you know that the masjid needs some volunteers, needs some help, whether it's bringing food, whether it's cleaning, whether it's also making the intention, if you can donate, you donate. Like in our case, we do a blood drive every Muharram. I myself volunteer and give blood. So these are the simple, practical, that Brother Samir mentioned. What is it that we can do to prepare? So I ask myself the question, I says, what is it that we can do to prepare? These are the simple things, the minimum things that we can do, in my mind, to prepare so that we can get the most benefit out of, Muharram, inshallah. That's
inshallah. Jazakumullah. Ahsant. Well, that's great prioritization. But also in that preparation, if I add, is having the constant reminder. Don't forget about the part where I'm preparing because Imam Hussein. It goes without saying, but the constant reminder that it's all about him. It's him. Because if you make it all about him, by extension, it's all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all about the Prophet. It's all about Ahlul-Beyt. So that's just one little. It goes without saying, like I said, I'm sure. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we can stand for Dua al-Faraj. Amir, do you want to recite Dua al-Faraj? أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتع فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين